Programming Throwdown, episode 131, Supporting Your Favorite Creators with Brave, with Jimmy Secretan. Take it away, Jason.
Hey, everybody. As most of you know, Patrick and I are huge fans of Brave. We love the browser. I recently switched to the search engine, which is working really well. I'm a big fan of that. I love the sort of ethos around Brave, and I've been a big fan for a long time. I'm super excited that we have Jimmy Secretan here, who's the VP of Ads and Premium Services, to talk about Brave. And we're going to dive through really how it works, where it came from, the inspiration, and what they're doing next. Really excited to have you on the show, Jimmy.
Well, thanks. It's great to be here. Really excited. So, let me start by I can tell the audience a little bit about Brave. Brave was started by Brendan Eich and Brian Bondi. Brendan Eich, who a lot of you will know from Mozilla, the inventor of JavaScript, and they set out to create this private by design browser, most secure, most private experience on the web. I joined actually a little over 3 years ago, one of the things that's really interesting about Brave, and if you haven't tried it out, please go to brave.com. You can download it for desktop, for Android, for iOS, for whatever you're using. Easy to install, easy to try out. The experience is, if you use Chrome, the experience is a lot like that, except incredibly aggressive about blocking out these third party ads and trackers that choke the internet experience and make it less private. And so Brave is this an incredibly fast, incredibly lightweight way to enjoy the web again.
How did you get Tell us a little bit about the path that you followed. Kind of your kind of career. What was the path that kind of led you to working on Brave?
Yeah, so I met Brendan Eich back when I was working at an ad tech company called Sonobi, and we had started to talk about okay, well, if you wanted to make these very private by design ad systems, how would you go about doing that? And because my background, I did my PhD in privacy preserving machine learning, at UCF here in Orlando. So always had this like real strong interest in privacy, and then got actually into advertising technology, all that stuff that powers these ads. And but
there was a lot of foresight there, because I think that was probably like 2010 or so, and I don't know if privacy. I mean, definitely privacy wasn't as big as it is now, and in general, I don't feel like it was in the zeitgeist back then. So that's very forward thinking.
No, you're absolutely right. Because when my advisor came to me, and said, "Oh, okay, well, I have this really interesting area. It's like privacy and data mining," and I'm like, "What? Basically, what are all those things? Why does anybody need all that stuff?" And but got into this really interesting area of because of all had that data background. It's like, oh, well, this is like a really like there are these really interesting ways that people can share data that but still remain private by design, but sort of get still what they want out of those systems. And sort of this interesting kind of upcoming area. And actually my first job out of my PhD was with a company that was just doing just that. We're saying like, hey, like, great, there's all this advertising stuff that helps power these publishers and keep this great content free. But we should make it more private by design, and really got into that stuff. And this is like 2010, 2011, and we just sort of we're like, this is privacy's moment. Everybody's like Safari had started blocking, third-party cookies and like, really, cleaning things up. And everybody was starting to, kind of talk about this, like, okay, like there's this very privacy sensitive future where, you still want all the services you're accustomed to, but you don't want your data everywhere. And then at the time it was sort of like, oh, okay, people are interested, and then they say, oh, that's interesting, and doing building things that are private by design is it's a lot of work. It's you really have to start to think about things differently and structure things differently, and but we put the effort into it, and it was just kind of like, yeah, it was interesting to people, but it wasn't quite the time. But I think fast forward 10 or so years later, right, and now things are really reaching fever pitch. Like people realize that okay, look, even if we trust these companies, and we don't always like how they're using our data, they can be breached. All these things can happen with this data or be used in ways that we don't intend. That it feels like, look, this is really the time to start to push on these really private by design systems and make them work for real.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about in back in episode 109, we had Kevin Urrutia on the show, and he talked about digital marketing, and it blew my mind when he went through so many different use cases of advertising and marketing, and I didn't even realize that I was being marketed to. So
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. Have you ever looked up, get data from, I don't know, PagerDuty into Google Cloud, or
Yeah.
like, something like that, or get data from Google Cloud into S3. So this company Zapier, basically bought domains and did a ton of SEO so that anytime you put, get X from Y into Z, they've enumerated all of those, and they're the first search result. And it just seems like, wow, Zapier does everything. And so that's marketing, and it's brilliant. And it, when Zapier started, they had that idea of they wanted to be the company to do that. But if I, technologist who has zero marketing advertising experience, had that idea, I would just build it and put it on GitHub, and probably no one would even know it was there. But Zapier, they put their marketing hat on, and they did that, and they were able to provide a ton of value to people, right? And so folks out there, you're going to be building projects, and there's going to be an audience that really wants to consume that project.
Yeah.
But it's not trivial to connect yourself to those people and add that value. And that is where that's where something like, you need to have some arbitrator that knows who's looking for what and who's providing that, and connects those people together. It's super, super important. So when a lot of people see ads, they see they immediately like think of the worst things, like
Right.
look at look what this mom feeds her kids, and her kids are 6'6" or whatever. It's like, buy this broccoli supplement or whatever.
To save money on your car insurance, right?
Yeah, like this one weird trick, and like, you too could get a PhD, and it's like, okay. But no, I mean, there's also, I mean, and then on the other side of it, there's people who say, okay, there's something sinister going on here, because I talked about going kayaking, and the next week I'm getting a kayaking ad. Like, how did that possibly happen? So kind of, you see the ends of the spectrum, and it's important for people to realize, like, in between there, there's a ton of value, and there's the grease that keeps like our entire economy and our entire economy of knowledge and of ideas, functioning.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That and Brave's stance, which I really love, is that it's like, look, seeing this advertising and marketing, and right, and of course supporting your favorite creators and publishers, that's actually an important part of what keeps the web going. And so, yes, Brave is aggressive at blocking out these sort of third-party ads and trackers and the things that are doing stuff that users just don't expect or understand, or sharing in a way. But it's not because we're unfriendly to the internet advertising model, and quite the opposite. Like, we know it's that like core to, like when Brave was founded, it's like, okay, here's the important triangle, right? Like there's the user. The user is this most important part of keeping the internet going. There's the advertisers who help fund it, and then there's the creators who are creating this great and interesting content that people want to go see, and they all interact importantly. So and that's what really brought me to Brave, and was really interesting to me. And I said, hey, I've got background and experience this making these systems sort of private by design, and being good and transparent and above board, and let's do this. Let's make this a part of it. Because yeah, to your point, if you've tried to visit any publisher site recently, without Brave or other comparable protections, right? Like open up, do yourself a favor. It's like open up that inspector, like look at the network tab, and see all of the requests that come along with just reading an article or going through something. And it can be dozens or hundreds of these requests that are sharing data about you in different ways and transferring it between systems. And again, all these things that you don't necessarily expect. Like if you are on, for instance, a car site, right? Well, typically on all those car sites, there are these, they call them pixels in the background. They're just, little like invisible things that your browser will load, and they'll set this cookie, set this little piece of information saying like, great, here's somebody, and they've gone to a car site. And then you'll be on some other unrelated site. They'll make a similar request from that same provider and say like, oh yeah, this was same person who was on that on that car site, and sort of this data can follow you everywhere, and get processed in other systems. And then people are like, well, it's not that people always object to being advertised to, but they're like, how did you know this? Like, where did you get this?
Yeah, and then once you introduce the social, graph, so I think Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn to a lesser extent, TikTok. I mean, all these sites have similar kind of pixels that they put on other people's sites. I mean, this is the whole third-party cookies thing, and so what can happen is, getting back to the kayak example. I mean, I definitely got asked this a lot in the past, like is my phone listening to me 24/7 and somehow doing some ASR 24/7 and then pulling out AdWords. It'd be extremely intractable from a tech perspective. But what's actually happening there is, you might have talked about kayaking to somebody, and then that person went on the web and looked up a bunch of kayaking stuff. And because you and that person are such close friends, now both of you are impacted by what that person did. So anytime you have a dialogue, that other person's, if you have a real life connection and a Facebook connection, then you're going to close the loop there. And so, but to your point, I mean, all of that feels extremely creepy, and because the data is coming from so many different places and it's not siloed, it feels like there's something sinister, some evil magic going on. And really what we need is to your point, is we just need to be able to silo things. And I think the blocking of the third party cookies is that's a relatively recent thing, right?
I mean, Brave has a pretty aggressive protections from, I think from day one. But yeah, a lot of them, a lot of these browsers, and then but right, and what you might be alluding to, right, is that it's Google Chrome is trying to do away with these sort of third party cookies by default.
Yeah, they're feeling the pressure from
that's
from
right.
Brave.
That's right. Of like your data being used in these unexpected ways. So I think there's sort of, especially now more than there's ever been, like a push, not just from like users and lawmakers and people like that, but from industry, from like people who want to advertise stuff. They're like, okay, well, this is fine if we have to find a more private way to do it, but like we got to get started. We've got to start using these better ways of doing it, or we're gonna lose access to to our audiences.
Yeah, that makes sense. So from like a a tech standpoint, can you kind of walk folks through, you know, what are sort of third-party cookies, and what does Brave do, and how is that different? Like what actually, at the end of the day, you still want to learn people's interests, right? Like
That's
I don't want to see ads for, I don't know, knitting or something like that. Like I'd rather see something that is going to be relevant to me. That is, I saw an ad recently um, for this kind of like a product that, anyways, it's kind of a technical thing, but I thought, oh, this is really cool. I could probably use
yeah.
this.
And you
And
were
so,
glad to know about it, right?
that's the kind of thing that you want. And so, how does, what was the state of things before Brave, and what is Brave doing, and how do you kind of, can you get the best of both worlds, or how do you deal with that dialectic?
Sure thing. I mean, and look, let me caveat by saying I am not the expert in Brave's various protections. There are people who are great at it at Brave, and they can speak to you at length about the like the numerous like fine grained protections that Brave offers. All the way from sort of like blocking these requests as far upstream as you can to preventing fingerprinting, which is when advertisers sort of use unique information about your device even when they can't set cookies. There's these like numerous protections they can write books for you on. But I mean, yeah, what it comes down to is like different ways of protecting your information from getting shared like across sites, across sessions, across things that you do. So in that example that I talked about, where you are, like I said, on a car site, right, or on a travel site, and sort of your whatever you're doing there and your preferences on that are, then being pulled back into, this ad tech providers kind of infrastructure, right? And then it is a third party request. If you're on travelwhatever.com, this is to goes to adtechprovider.com. But they know it's coming from that travel site, and so then you can if you are on at some later point, you're on a news site, right, and that news site wants to serve you ads. All it has to do is say make a request to adtechprovider.com. It says, oh, actually, this is somebody I recognize, and I know they've done some interesting and relevant. So, I know they're interested in travel. I know they've looked up some cars. Whatever it is, and then say, and and have those ads to give you right there. But and to your point, it's like, look, you want stuff to be relevant. Sometimes you like as jaded as we can become about advertising on the internet. It's like, oh, that's a cool thing. Like I didn't know, like that's great. Why didn't you tell me that existed? Like now I want that, and so
Right. And put yourself on the other side of it. I mean, if you build something, how are you going to tell someone halfway across the world about your thing?
that's right.
And
That's
there's
right.
really no other way to do it. I mean, that's what people have done since the dawn of commerce, right?
Yeah, and if you're, and if you're a publisher, right, and that's very much part of the conversation. Like you actually want, that's how in a ton of cases you're funding, the content that you're putting together. Like, yeah, people are paywalling stuff more, but like the sort of the easiest way to get things out there, and the reason why a lot of small creators can exist is that ability to advertise and get sort of get rewarded for what they do, right? And
Hmm.
so that's an important component of it. Or find, right, it's important that they find ways that they can in a low friction way get support from their community. And it's people aren't always into okay, well, pull out my credit card and put in $10 there. And it's sometimes that's very high friction for them to do. And so that's like I said, another piece of that. And so the alternative that Brave has put in a lot of effort to looks a lot like this, right? So we work with advertisers also, right? And so we say, they come to us and they say, yeah, we've got this great new project. We want to get this, in front of people, all that other good stuff. Okay, well, we have an interface where they can put in and call it trafficking a campaign, but it's basically saying, okay, what do you want to tell them? Where do you want to send them? And how much do you want to spend? And then for users who opt in to what we call it's our Brave Rewards program, and the part that I work on is Brave Ads. And so users opt into this. They decide to do this. They say yes, want to do this. And and the great part about it is they're rewarded for their attention. They get 70% of the ads revenue that we take in, is paid out directly to them in the form of our basic attention token. It's an Ethereum based crypto token that can transfer value. It's got real worth. And so you opt into this program, and then what's happening in the background is this. Your browser then goes out, fetches this catalog of ads for your region, like all the stuff that advertisers are eager to show you. And then as you browse along, we're using what we call it local machine learning. So that means that everything stays on device, right? Like your history, your visits, your searches, they never get sent to they never get sent to Brave, they never get sent to anybody else. All that stuff happens with you. But we can still make stuff relevant by saying, oh, okay, well, the browser itself is saying like, okay, well, what are they interested in? All right, well, they've been browsing these, like they're looking for a new laptop. Like, okay, great. Like we can, you can recognize that, and you never have to communicate that, to Brave or anybody else's systems. But then your browser said, okay, actually, I'm looking in this big list of ads, and there's something like exactly new. There's like a great deal on a new laptop, right? And then we, right now in a couple different forms, either you'll see a little notification pop up at the side. We have some that come up in a news reader, and some, across, the new tab page. But, for the notification ones, those are put, those are made relevant for you, right? And so it's like, okay, great. We know that we've got like a, exactly what they're looking for. Let's show this to them, right? And then what we do is this really interesting process from there. We have it's called a two-phase blinded token process, basically.
Sponsor for today's show is mParticle. At the end of the day, your customer has to be at the center of everything you do. This starts with the right customer data strategy, as well as the right foundation to solve the challenges that typically inhibit success, such as data quality, data governance, and connectivity. mParticle is your real-time customer data infrastructure that helps accelerate your data strategy by cleansing, visualizing, and integrating your customer data from anywhere to anywhere. Ultimately, better data leads to better decisions, better customer experiences, and better outcomes. Some of the best brands in retail, financial services, hospitality, media, travel, gaming, and many other industries have chosen mParticle. Learn more by visiting www.mparticle.com. Better data, better decisions, better outcomes. Visit mparticle.com to learn how teams at Postmates, NBC Universal, Spotify, and Airbnb use mParticle's customer data infrastructure to accelerate their customer data strategies.
So like, how do you get started building something like that, right? Because you're building something that you can't observe. And so that seems really, really hard. I mean, actually, let's spend a little bit of time on that. I mean, you have to, so to backtrack a little bit. So, the way I guess, old ad tech would work is they would take in, so that company you said would see, this person went to this travel website. And so they would have a row somewhere in some database
Right.
somewhere saying, Jimmy Secretan went to travel website at this time on this day. And then they have a ton of these rows, and then they can do a bunch of machine learning on that. And then they can ask like little hypotheticals, like, okay, what do I think Jimmy is really interested in now? And it would come back and say laptops. And they say, okay, well, that looks like it makes sense because I have this whole database. In your case, though, it's all blind, right? So how do you build something? It just seems like wild to be able to build something like that and know that it's working.
Yeah, it is very challenging to put together and run, but it's powerful when it works. So right, exactly to your point. If this were traditional ad tech, the request would go out. I'd be on some news site. The request would go out to travel site, or to adtechprovider.com. And yeah, my user ID there would represent hundreds, thousands of rows in that database that covers literally everything that I might have ever shown interest in, or at least since I last cleared my cookies, right? And so right, it could be say like, okay, well, we got laptops, and we got this
And
travel.
even then, there's the fingerprinting thing. We should definitely talk about that too. I'd love to learn more about that.
That's right. And so even it's like, even when and I say like, okay, great, I'm going to solve this. I've blocked out third-party cookies like this. Great, it is it is fine. They can't use this ID to look up stuff about me. What some of these systems can then do, right, is they say like, well, okay, we know historically that it's like, your IP address hangs around for, X amount of time, and your user agent is sort of this identifiable. It's either this or something you've recently upgraded, and it can get wild, and I don't know how common these are out there, but like it could even go to the point where it's like how your GPU renders stuff, and that
Wow.
can be like you can sort of read back those like pixels in the canvas, and like different configured computers and browsers will like render things in different ways. Like it gets it gets extreme, and it's an arms race in some ways, right? Of like, okay, somebody will introduce some protection um, against this type of re-identification or fingerprinting, and then somebody will come out with something even more sophisticated to get around it, right?
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm, taking the time to think about it, I mean, a lot of people, their browser doesn't occupy, they're not full screen, like the browser doesn't
Yeah,
occupy the whole window. And so they've probably just resized it, months ago, and it's just that size. And so it's some like pretty unique number. I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do, right?
that's right. And each little bit of information that you have gives you a little bit more to help you identify that. So it's, even if you can't set the cookies that you want to, there's systems out there that help to reconnect that and say like, oh, okay, actually I thought this was somebody new, but I took this and this, and I've pulled all this in, and it's like, okay, now I've got their travel interests, their laptop interests, all this other stuff.
Wow.
And the worst part about that is then some of that stuff starts to make it to where like it's hard to even find what for all of third party cookies faults. Sometimes you can at least go like, the provider has to give you some sort of lookup usually, where you say like, okay, well, what do you know about me? But this can be a lot harder to see and a lot more hidden,
Hmm.
and so and really it gets to the point of like, well, look, what do we want to keep building? Do we want to keep having this like arms race with ad tech providers and browser makers, where we're just constantly upping the game of measures and countermeasures? Or do we want to like start over, build something interesting from scratch that meets the privacy requirements, meets the user requirements, rewards them as part of it, for their attention, and gets the advertisers the outcome that they want, and then makes it so those users can go and contribute those earnings back to their favorite creators, like keep the web running, like. And that seems, that's the alternative that we put in a lot of effort to, and that's what we think is going to be important in the future. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I love the way that Brave works on this sort of spectrum, where on one end of the spectrum, you can donate some of your mind and some of your time to look at some other opportunities, and then you will actually get some of those attention tokens, and then the website that you're on will get some of those attention tokens, and that supports the content creators that are producing that content. And then alternatively, on the other end of the spectrum, you can actually spend, you can get bats. You can get these Brave attention tokens, just by spending USD or whatever your local currency is. You can get these tokens, and then you can give them directly to these content creators, these websites, and you
That's
don't
right.
even have to manually manage all of that or subscribe to a paywall and do all of that. You just set up the Brave wallet once for the entire internet, and Brave will also handle. It has some different policies of how you want to distribute that. You could do it, manually, but they also have some automatic policies. And so that whole thing, I think, is a much more elegant way of doing things.
Yeah, and you did a great job describing it, right? Because right when you sign up for these Brave rewards, and you'll if you're seeing these privacy preserving ads, you'll get your payout at the end of the month, and then all the way you can say like, oh look, I love this article, I love this tweet, and you can just go give somebody a bat, like oh great, great work, keep up the good work, or like you're saying, say okay, look, I of what I've earned and taken in, I want you to contribute, X amount of bat to, to the sites that I love. Or you can say, look, I don't want to do any of this stuff entirely, ads in whatever form annoys me, but I do want to support, support my favorite creators. Great. I'm going to put some, bat into the system. I'm going to, send it to my favorite creators, and support them that way, right? And we want to make sure that there's room for all those different ways of doing it.
Cool. Yeah, we've had a couple of over the years. We've had a couple of cryptocurrency type folks, but I don't think we've really, had a deep dive into Ethereum and these kind of things. And so maybe just at a high level, what is BAT, and how do people get it? Can people turn it into their local fiat currency? How does that whole thing work?
Yeah, absolutely. So right. BAT is called like an ERC20 token. On this Ethereum network, and that really just describes a set of sort of standard interfaces, for this token that it works in a lot of the ways you would expect it. You can trade it around, send it, all that other stuff. But yeah, there are many different places now you can go. You can go to different these different providers on the web. Go say like, great, I want to buy 100 bat. I'm really interested in this, and then it it's compatible with our ecosystem, and is so. And look, I will again caveat by saying, I never came into Brave as the crypto expert, and I still would not claim to be, but it's
I
like
feel confident you know more than me. Patrick actually is a crypto. I don't know if he's a secret crypto guru, but he just in general seems to know more than I do. But no, I mean you've explained it really well. Definitely, I'm starting to paint a better picture here.
yeah, I mean, and what makes it really exciting, right? Is like, look, the way this came about, and I think what's so cool about coins like this, they have these ICOs, these initial coin offerings, and Brave was no different. It's like, okay, well, look, we're minting all these these new coins, and people can and they did support the future of Brave. When the Brave team sort of put that out there and said, look, they put out the white paper. They said, here's what we really want to do. Here's how we want to reshape the economics of the internet. We think this is the right way to do it. Here's the team that we're forming and building to do just that. And people went in and they said, okay, well, I think there's value. There's value in this future. I want to buy some of this token. And and that's just, it's like such a cool grassroots way of supporting projects that you love, and of course there's I will not name names, but there are also plenty of coin offerings out there that are it's a little bit
Oh yeah, I've heard about
worthy, right?
some sketchy ICOs. Yeah.
you know
But this is, I mean, I think from the beginning it was clear that this is a real business, a real product. Some
Absolutely.
some of the ICOs are just, it was clear that there's nothing really there.
Absolutely. And we have, I think it was, I think it was in January. I think we paid out something like 8.5 million Brave users, in the form of BAT. And, so it's, what I love about Brave, there are, again, a lot of companies, like you're saying, out there that are, sort of consider themselves in the crypto space and work with it. And, we are very much not just like crypto for crypto's sake. It's like, look, this is obviously like Brave super appeals to crypto savvy users. There are, I have been lucky to work with, some of the most like brilliant crypto people that I've ever met, here at Brave, and people who like really understand these things inside and out. But more than anything, it's like, look, we know that this is an important tool to a vibrant future, right? Because, and there's some systems that you kind of need to bridge that. The sort of blockchains aren't always ready, and there's still like a ton of development, and like every year it's different.
Yeah, actually, kind of a question there is why, and this is maybe a dumb question, but why are there different coins? So like specifically with Brave, like why not use Ethereum or Bitcoin or one of these things? Like what's the advantage in making a new form of currency?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the early versions of Brave that did this, did this with Bitcoin, right? Because the ICO hadn't happened yet, and then that was definitely before my time. But the thing is, like, what gives rise to like so many of these different coins is that, like, one, Ethereum is like very cool and interesting because of things like they call smart contracts, right? Where it's like on the blockchain, you can sort of put code on the blockchain that will like that will execute, and you can do all these really interesting things with it. And I think the Brave team, at the time knew that, like, look, having sort of your own token, one, gave you this, like, a lot of these really interesting things that you could start to do in the future. Like you could start to make these these sort of really smart things around it that are imposed by the blockchain, and that future is like really appealing. And two, a really important part of the ICO is this. The team allocated a bunch of tokens for what they called it the user growth pool, right? And so the idea was like, hey, look, we're allocating a certain amount of this to help bootstrap these this system, right? And make it interesting, for users and creators, and like to get that going, and so those kinds of things, I think, tend to be like really really important for projects like this to help get off the ground.
Oh, that makes sense. So by creating sort of a separate token, you're creating like a unique, like a siloed risk profile. So basically, you could give a bunch of Brave tokens to folks, and then they have an incentive now to keep the Brave ecosystem healthy. Versus if you just gave Ethereum to random people, then that's just money in a well, and who knows what would really have happened.
Yeah, and like we said, we can do stuff. Some of our systems help, handle the parts that are still maturing, on Web3. And so, for instance, like when you want to send, you'll hear people in like crypto complain about gas fees, and really it's just like these like high transaction costs. And for instance, a lot of what Brave has tried to work on. So it's like, if you think about trying to contribute a creator, right? Like to a creator, one of the sort of obvious and more straightforward things that people did for a while was like, hey, look, great, I'm gonna put my ETH address on here, and whenever you'd like, you can send me send me ETH, like do it, or Bitcoin. And it's like, and so, but for Ethereum fees, like transaction fees, have been like really high. So it's like, okay, if I have to pay $10 or $15 to send somebody $1, that just doesn't work very well, right? And so a lot of the gap, that Brave helped to bridge was saying like, okay, look, you can actually, you can actually give, sort of these, you can contribute to your favorite creators with these tokens. Our systems will actually help keep the fees to basically, keep the fees minimal, make it anonymous in the way you contribute to it, right? So we actually don't know that it's coming from, okay, well, we've tracked the contributions of this Ethereum address, so we know that the same user has done this, right? Like
Mhm.
our system sort of help to keep those votes and contributions anonymous, and reduce the fees on things, and then ultimately then they will later in aggregate get what they say settled on chain, like actually sent to to a crypto address, like to try to keep this practical. So now, like in the Brave system, right, you can go and you can set and you say, like, great, I want to send, I love this tweet, here's $1, and it's like this easy, low friction way. Or I love this article, like I really want to support this creator, like great, this super low friction way, like, hey, I earned $5 or $6 in BAT last time, this was good reporting, here's $1. And it's funny
Mhm.
that interestingly enough, if you're a creator with a sort of ads driven site, like getting a direct and low friction contribution of $1, can be, in aggregate big, because, sometimes those, fine, you loaded an article and a typical, they call it like programmatic impression on on like some publisher site, maybe a dollar, CPM. And that means like $1 per 1,000 of them. So it's like, versus like, oh, okay, well, hey, I saw ads and I contributed to your page, right? Like, or, like that's the good I did. Like that might only be, 0.3 cents. Whereas if, a few interested people, want to make contributions and have a good low friction way to do it, like, that can be worth actually like quite a few ads, seen on a site, right?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. I think, plus, it allows people to really tangibly, clearly see, how much value they are creating. I think
Absolutely.
that, I mean, anything with donations, there's a ton of psychology around donations and how that all works, but I mean, clearly there's a correlation between how many donations you're going to get and the value that you're providing. And so you can measure that, and you can ultimately, most people who are producing content, they're trying to provide the best possible service. And so this gives them a nice measuring stick.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So, one of the things that I really liked back in, I guess, 2009 or something, when Google started really pushing Chrome and logging into Chrome, and you're having your sort of identity attached to the browser,
Mhm.
was just the fact that, like, your bookmarks kind of went everywhere, you did your history kind of went everywhere. And so, is that kind of stuff possible in Brave? I actually don't know the answer to this question, but is there a way to sort of sync your bookmarks and your history and all of that, given that there really is no, you're not logging in when you install Brave?
Jason, I'm so glad that you asked. So,
Literally, I mean, if it's true, I need to set it up, because currently it's not synchronized.
no, I feel like you gave me a real softball here. So that's great. So
Okay, I thought the answer was going to be no, so I thought okay.
one of the things that my team works on is Brave Sync, or yeah. So uh, it's interesting. Brave is based on Chromium, which for anybody in the audience doesn't know, like that's the same sort of open source core that is in Google Chrome that, like, everybody's familiar with, right?
Yeah, actually, do you know anything? I'm really curious about the history of that. Um, like, like, do you know? Do you or Brandon or other folks in your circles know really, like how Chrome came about to be an open source thing, and what went on there?
Oh, that's a good question. No, I'm sure they would know the history of it. Like, I don't, but it's sort of been that way as long as I can remember, and and it's good because it does give now projects like ours, of course, can sort of say like, okay, look, we're taking the core of that, but we want to bring it in this direction, and
Mm-hmm.
and look, I think it's paid off for them too, right? Like our team, quote unquote, upstream stuff all the time, where we say like, oh, actually, we found this problem in core Chromium, like, and they pull in our pull request, and
Nice.
everybody benefits, right? And so, but yeah, so it's for at least the last 3 years. It's based on Chromium. I think a little bit before that, like it used to be based on this fork of Electron, like. But
Ah,
now based on Chromium, and of course, it's like if you base on Chromium, the good part is like a bunch of stuff is sort of done there for you, and there's you can solve these compatibility issues, but still get a lot of the protections that you want. But interestingly enough, like so. Right. Google has a sync. You can turn on sync your bookmarks, and all that other stuff, right? And because the client side code, like this, the stuff that talks to the server, is open source, right? That's we can use that too. But the server side of Google Sync is not open sourced, and so we had this legacy sort of sync system actually before that we kind of carried through, and after the switch to Chromium, we said, okay, well, look. If we want to make this, we want to give everybody the stuff that they're used to, exactly like you're saying. It's like we want a way to give people like great bookmark sync, and password sync, and sync their tabs and all that other stuff. How do we do that? Like, how do we do that in the lightest way possible? And so what we did in the end was we sort of the team here. And a lot of the browser engineers kind of dug into it and sort of made a wire compatible sync protocol that we could then open source and like run on our servers. And a key difference is that it's kind of a little known mode, but Chrome actually has a locally encrypted by default mode for your sync, and so that's actually what we or sorry, but it's not a default. It's like a obscure setting.
ah.
But in contrast, we said, okay, like ours is going to be locally encrypted by default. So you get this system that's kind of like the best of both worlds, right? Like you sign up to you say like, okay, I want to enable Brave Sync. You get this key that it's one of those sets of words that makes actually a local encryption key. All that bookmark data, everything you choose to sync is locally encrypted with that key. We do not, Brave never gets that key. We do not have it, anything like that. You locally encrypt your stuff like on your computer, and then you send it up to the Brave servers like encrypted. So
It's similar to like a Proton mail or something, where
yeah,
it's it's end-to-end encryption. So you have the encryption on your phone, and then it goes to, so you are actually holding the people's bookmarks, but just encrypted somewhere on a server. Now when someone comes in with their desktop, but then I guess, like, what's the user ID then? Because there's no account, right?
yeah. So it's sort of very very reminiscent of crypto, because like your quote unquote ID is just the public key of this, and you encrypt stuff with the private key of this.
Oh, I see. So you have some database where the given a public key, here's all of your data. And so I see. So anybody can get Jimmy's data. It's
Well,
just
no, actually,
encrypted,
that's
because
not.
and they can't actually decrypt it.
No, correction there. Like you actually have to sign and prove that you own the private key to even request it, right? And so it's like, so it's
Oh,
still
I see.
it's still protected. It's still like nobody with just your public, like even though you don't really share your public key with anybody, nobody with just your public key could go get your data. Like it's your request still has to be signed with your private key, and then we know that you're authorized to do it. You,
Got
of course,
it.
obviously
Okay.
never share your private key with us, and then
Right.
only you using your private key can decrypt this. So right,
Got
we
it.
never received this private key. And so right, only you can request it. And even if somehow somebody did get access to that data, it would be useless to them because they would not have your private key, and it would just be encrypted blobs.
Got it. Yeah, one of these days, we should get someone on the show who knows, because that the signing part I still don't quite understand. Like I understand how you can go in one direction, but I didn't. But yeah, I'm sure it's possible. I just don't know how like how you can. So if you have the private and public key, how can someone else know that you're you? Oh, I guess maybe you encrypt. So, oh, Patrick, maybe you want to jump in. You,
Yeah.
you seem to know a lot more about crypto.
Oh, sorry. So, I mean, I think the difference is like most people think in terms of symmetric key cryptography. And in symmetric key, the same key will encode something and decode something, right? So the key with public key cryptography, oh, I said key twice, is you have one asymmetric. So if somebody uses the public key, the one you share, then only the private key will undo that encryption. But the nice thing is that because of how it's designed, taking a message, so just say it's your name, Jason, and you use your private key to sign it. If I take your public key and apply it to that, and I get back out Jason, then I know only Jason could have done Jason if the public key I have is Jason's public key, which
Oh,
knowing
right.
whose key it is a whole separate topic. And like, how do you have a root of trust for knowing that the public key is the person? But if you're still trusting a server to say that like the server is going to send you a challenge, right? The challenge is the current timestamp plus some random number or whatever. And then you need to put your private key into the algorithm to encrypt that. That information, if someone intercepted it, if whatever, they can't do anything with it. It goes up to the server. The server takes its knowledge of your public key and decodes it and makes sure that you are the one who signed that challenge, that bit of information. And no one else could have done it because if
Right.
they did, they had your private key and you're already screwed. So that way that you can sort of perform this you can prove who you are. And you prove who you are by doing something with your private key that only the private key could have done.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that way, like if there is a person in the middle who has your public key, they see that you passed the challenge, but that doesn't really, that's not a security issue. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So
not a
like
big deal.
replay attack or them getting in the middle of you would be a separate issue. So they wouldn't send you a clear text of the challenge. They would send you their encrypted version of the challenge. And that way someone in the middle couldn't intercept it, right?
Oh, right. Okay. Cool. That is awesome. So okay, so circling back here, so you don't even get. I mean, not that I mean, the public key is very, or the key in general is very hard to break, but you don't even have to worry about that because you can't get the data to where then you could just you know thrash away at it unless you can prove yourself first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Even if even if you did get access to that data, right, it would be encrypted, and only the private key holder would be able to decrypt it.
And um, got it. And so okay, that makes sense. So the yeah, that's a really a cool service. I think it must be a pretty large database. I mean, I'm just thinking like that's a wild. But I guess it's with all the cloud stuff out there, they make it so
Yeah,
easy to scale.
and look, the good news is now if you go our sync server code, it's done in Golang, and you can see it on our GitHub. We use and it uses DynamoDB for any of you AWS fans
Oh, nice.
as backend storage, which has been real helpful, real scalable, and yeah, it's no, right. It's big, but I think our users our users seem to enjoy it, and that's what matters.
Cool. So maybe we'll touch on one last thing, and then I want to talk about Brave the company. I want to make sure we leave time for that. But one last thing is, if you are a content creator, you have Jimmy.com, and you produce a bunch of blogs and it's really popular, and you want to be a part of this and you want to receive support from Brave folks, like how do you sort of sign up and get that going?
Yes, super simple. Go to creators.brave.com and you can sign up. And there's a bunch of, so basically what you do in that is sort of you prove that you either own the site or the account or whatever it is. But it's interesting. You can sign up with it, for a lot of different platforms too, right? So yeah, not only can you put your site on there, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a Twitter handle, there's like Reddit now, or even if you are a prolific Reddit user, like you can let people contribute to you when they thought you did a great job.
Cool. That makes sense. Yeah, because there's probably a lot of trickery there. Like there's, youtube.com, but then there's m.youtube.com if you're on mobile. And so by, providing a easy way, you kind of handle like all that complexity.
Yeah, and right. I mean, gets complex under the hood. The rewards team that works on this, right? Are constantly sort of working along with things that can break on those sites but fixing them back up to make sure that okay, like we know a creator, we know where we should send the bat for this, basically.
Right, right. Very cool. Yeah. So if you're out there and you create content on the internet, I guess, I mean, pretty much anything is, check this out, and it's a really good opportunity. What about did you have like a badge or something where people can put a little badge on their website saying, letting other people know that they take the Brave token? Like how does the discoverability part work?
Yeah. So look, if you are, well, one, if you're doing this in Brave, you'll see that there's a little bat triangle that will show a check mark to say, like, oh, you're a verified creator. So it's a little bit part of the Brave experience, and of course, creators who want to proudly proclaim that they love Brave. I think our site, if you go to brave.com, there's a bunch of brand assets there that I think they're able to use. So yeah, the browser will know it, and then of course you are welcome to proclaim it however you like.
Cool. Yeah, so just to recap, Brave, I've used it for a long time. Actually, at work, we are not allowed to use Brave, which makes me very sad. But to be fair to them, we're not allowed to use almost anything. They're very strict on IT.
Is it like the yeah? 'Cause, so I know some like IT policies flag it because it's got like a Tor component that you can get or whatever, right?
Oh, I wish it was that complicated. I think it's literally, here's a list of programs you can use. And, we actually, I mean, to be fair, like most of us are logging into the data center and doing everything there. And over there, we have root access and we can do anything we want. But yeah, so I had to use Firefox, and, and even the, installing the ad blocker, it doesn't totally work all the time. And I feel like some of these ad blockers are kind of compromised in the sense that, they have deals with certain advertisers. They say, oh, this is like a good ad, and so we're going to keep this one. And so Brave is the only thing I've used recently which just works. Just you install it, you don't have to do any plugins or anything. It just wipes all the ads that you don't like right off the face of the earth, which is amazing. Definitely folks should check it out. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of features I didn't even know about, so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to turn on the sync later today and try that out. Try out those features. Definitely use Brave. We're huge fans, and let's dive into the company here. So um, you joined a few years ago, and so what is sort of the growth of the company? Like, where is Brave now, and what's been that trajectory like?
Yeah, so I think around when I joined, I forgot the numbers back then, but it was, well, I actually remember when I first started talking, to the Brave team, actually years before, we'd had a lot of interaction. I think it was like a few hundred thousand users then. This was years ago, and but I immediately loved it. Started using it. The old Electron based version. But yeah, it's grown just tremendously. In the meantime, I think it was in January we had over 50 million monthly active users. Across all those different platforms. And it's just enormous. Yeah, it's been such an interesting trajectory because yeah, even when I joined, there's been like an incredible amount of growth since then. And actually the team had done a lot of we work on this rewards program and on some of the ads already. But I came in and kind of help sort of launch and grow it. And what started as just of like, okay, a few thousand users who was for the who'd sign up, who were like really interested, has grown into millions. And now it's like you hear about it in all sorts of different venues, and it's like, oh, okay, like you open up real periodicals, like you look in Forbes and it's like, oh, they're talking about Brave. And it's like, it's such a cool thing, because I sort of, I either got used to working at companies where you didn't really, they were sort of, B2B things. You didn't really hear people, mention much, or, sort of smaller things. And this is, it doesn't, it doesn't take too many more kind of like doublings of our user base to start to become, a significant portion of browsing and really, a juggernaut. So it's like, so that's very exciting, but, what I'd also say is that it like, you see Brendan Eich, CEO, like engage with people on Twitter, like every day, and he's like very famous for it. And keeps like very close to all those users, right? Like when people don't like things and people complain about stuff or they think it should be different, if the idea is good, it doesn't matter sort of who or where it came from. Brendan brings it to us and it's like, yeah, this is what we should do. This is like our user, the people who are passionate about us and support us, like they're out there, and this is they're complaining about this drives them nuts, or they wish we were working on this. And
So what's the sort of order of magnitude? When Brendan comes to the companies, is it like, how many engineers are we talking about? Is it like tens of engineers, hundreds, thousands of engineers?
No, we're definitely not in the thousands. I don't have an updated count, but we're certainly over 100 or so right now.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, we are. So yeah, it's no, it's exciting. And now we're working, and like, yeah, now we're working on some really interesting pieces. Because probably, as you saw, like Brave acquired a search engine, right, and an associated team. And yeah, like I said, I love Brave Search. It's that team just constantly amazes me, and like the growth has been like incredible there. We're putting out sort of like premium sort of products, right? Like you can already get the VPN on iOS, and you can get this premium Brave Talk, this Zoom competitor that's like. Real easy to join and anonymous and private, again, by design. That's a really interesting project too, because, Talk, which is based on open source Jitsi, and we work with the team that runs that now too. Again, like both really private by design. Like we don't keep metadata about your calls or anything like that. You use these like anonymous credentials essentially to join things. But I think what it has also showed is that like in a lot of what we do, like you don't have to sacrifice really cool functionality to get privacy. Like we want users to have both.
Mm-hmm.
Like what we love about Brave Talk is it's like you can generate a link and then just join it in your browser. Like so many of these video conferencing kind of providers, they take the experience outside the browser, and like we want to make it a really good experience in the browser, because like that's what people are using day in and day out, like 10 hours a day, you know.
Yeah, my biggest pet peeve is when these video conferences, I've seen several do it, so it's not any particular one at fault, is where they'll give you a deep link that will take you to a browser just so that they can then open the desktop app. It's like they couldn't
Yeah, that's right.
even use like a desktop protocol deep link, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, that's right. And so we want to make it just like we, when we do engineering interviews, like we do that too. We give them a talk link to join, and it's like, and it's easy, and they are able to show up. Like my nightmare always is like, oh, you're supposed to join this meeting, and like, oh, okay, there's a 5-minute Blue Jeans install that has to happen before you can do anything, right? So it's,
You wake up at 5 a.m. with like a cold sweat. It's like, what was that nightmare? Oh, it was I had to use Blue Jeans again. Yeah, VC is the bane of so many people's existence. I mean, everyone really complains about VC. I haven't tried Brave Talk yet. I'm gonna give it a shot. What about like in terms of positions? We have a lot of folks who are, starting college, finishing college, and so they're looking for everything from internships over the summer all the way to full time positions. And we have people all over the world. So what are sort of the opportunities and what are the sort of locales there?
yeah, I'm like very glad you asked. So I definitely encourage everybody to head to the careers page, brave.com/careers. Because we're definitely hiring. Specifically for my team, like we have 4 or 5 roles for my team, and I'm one of many teams here that has open roles. We're always looking for great people to help us run and scale these systems, um, and work wise, we're actually we're very much remote first. Even pre-pandemic, so there's an office in San Francisco, there's an office in Grand Cayman, um, and
Wait, there's an
but
office in Grand Cayman, like
there
the
is, there
island?
is, and
Okay.
I think there's like 8 or 9 people there now. I mean, it's like,
Wow.
and they've been hiring a lot of people locally, and like people really like the life out there,
Wait,
and
we have to double click on this. So how did that get started? Was this somebody who had a bunch of Bitcoin? So when I think of Grand Cayman, I think of people trying to escape things. I don't know. I don't know if maybe I've watched too many
no.
movies, but is this like Bitcoin millionaires in Grand Cayman or something?
Well, look, and probably I can't tell you I don't know the genesis of it, but I've known that
Okay.
since I've joined, it was there, and it's real, right? It's like, yeah, people, really love it. They really go out there, and
Like in the
it's
background, there's palm trees and everything. I bet
oh
it
yeah,
makes you jealous if
it's
you're in a meeting with them.
no, it's gorgeous, and a lot of um, no, yeah, no, it's like a wonderful office, and like a lot of awesome people out there, and so
That is
um,
amazing.
yeah, and so San Francisco too, but for instance, a lot of us work remotely, right? I'm right outside of Orlando, and have been, and then we'll usually get together for certainly pre-pandemic we would do these like all hands, and now again very soon, hopefully, and or we just fly out to see each other, like when we were actually doing a lot of this work on sync. um, we were, we actually flew out to like Arizona, because there were a couple of the engineers there, and we just like we had a few days in around Phoenix, right, and just had a good time. So
Cool.
no, it's great. Like we hire all over the world. That's definitely the case for everybody. On my team, we span a number of time zones. And I think we've gotten pretty used to working remotely, and we're reasonably good at it, I think.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, very nice. So folks, check out Cruise. Oh, about internships. Do you do internships or is it full time only?
Yeah, we definitely have internships open, and I think this is like right about the time for it, and so I think we're we're close to bringing on some interns here. So definitely if send your information my way if you're interested.
Cool. And what sort of skills are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, and there's tons of different positions, across, there's like BD and design and engineering, and but look, definitely, like Brave always, I think is looking for people who are like, one, well versed in the browser, right? It's like this whole ecosystem, unto itself, and I and definitely for our team, people who are great at scaling all this infrastructure, and keeping it reliable and cost effective and all that other good stuff, because we're all these services are growing up and scaling, and we want to make sure that we're still providing great service to our users. So if you're great at that, like, we're definitely always hiring for that. Let's see what else. I'm specifically looking for some great data engineers. So if you do that, like please please hit me up on Twitter. But
Very
yeah,
cool.
but look, great engineers, great engineers overall, who care about privacy and care about making the best possible web. We're happy to talk to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is actually a really good point. I think if you're out there and you've built something, website, or even something that has some kind of server component, take a little bit of time and get it to run on AWS. I'm kind of frugal to a fault, and I didn't use public cloud stuff for a really long time because I didn't want to pay the 16 cents a month or whatever it was. That was not good. So don't do that. Basically, learn public cloud, get your stuff on AWS. For one, if you lose your hard drive, it's not a big deal then. You still have your site. Number two, you're not going to tax your own personal computer and your own personal internet. I'd have issues where my home internet would go down for a day, and I'd get people emailing me, MameHub is down and all these other things are down, and it's like but most importantly, you're going to build skills that are extremely, extremely important. I mean, the public cloud services, and all of them are kind of learning from each other. So there's a whole ecosystem there that you could take some time to learn and build some skills that are really, really in demand right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we use AWS for a lot of different things. And look, as an engineer, like, I'm just a huge S3 fan. Like, it's
Yeah.
diehard S3 fan. Like, it is so useful in so many different ways.
Yeah, I don't think we've had an episode on cloud file systems. Maybe we need to have you back, Jimmy, to talk about that.
I'm sure there's people with plenty more expertise there, but.
Okay, cool. Hey, it was amazing to have you on the show. I think Brave is an amazing browser. I've used it for years. It has never let me down. I've been a diehard fan. I don't know when Brave started. Actually, just really quick, when did the Brave project start, in the sense that it was launched to the public?
Oh, let's see. That's a good question. I should better know my Brave history.
I've been using it for at least a few years now. We made it tool of the show maybe 3-4 years ago, and ever since then, I'm using it right now to record this. So it's an amazing piece of technology. Highly recommend it. And if you're producing content on the web, check out the this whole BAT system. Be a creator on Brave, and if you are looking for some cool stuff to do this summer, check out the summer internships. There's also full-time positions. A whole breadth of opportunity here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. We'll catch y'all later.
Music by Eric Barndollar.
Programming Throwdown is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike 2.0 license. You're free to share, copy, distribute, transmit the work, to remix, adapt the work, but you must provide attribution to Patrick and I, and share alike in kind.